All right, so I was thinking, right, because this whole offseason, we talked about how the Browns need to bring back Jarvis Landry, how the Browns need to get Will Fuller, how the Browns need to trade for Brandon Cooks, and the Browns have looked into those options to trade for those guys or to look for guys like that or to bring back a Jarvis Landry. But then I got to thinking, are we, as Browns fans, overlooking Anthony Schwartz and Donovan Peoples-Jones? Like, are we being fair to Anthony Schwartz and Donovan Peoples-Jones? Anthony Schwartz is a third-round pick last year. I mean, some of the wide receivers we talking about drafting this year to replace Anthony Schwartz are third-round picks. Now, granted, last year wasn't as strong as a wide receiver class as this year, but the value is still the same. And when it comes to Donovan Peoples-Jones, I mean, in the training camp period of last year, we thought this man was going to be the number one wide receiver. We thought he was going to take snaps away from Odell, and we still thought Odell was going to work out here. So it's gotten me to think, because sometimes we get into this thing as NFL fans where new sometimes just seems better just because it's new, right? We just want new. Everybody else getting new. I want new. Like, that's kind of what it turns into. And this happens in life with other things, but it also happens when it comes to your favorite football team, right? We look at other teams getting new wide receivers and we're like, why we don't got nothing new? We want new, you know what I mean? And we already got Amari Cooper, who's new. I did the film breakdown. Make sure you check that out and hit that subscribe button. But this is kind of one of the patterns we have run into. Now, let's talk about Anthony Schwartz because I think it's less complicated with Anthony Schwartz. One, he's going to get a chance just because he was a third-round pick last year, and he does run a 4.22. The issues I've had with Anthony Schwartz over the year and even when they drafted him was, hey, how ready will he be to play wide receiver? And how good is he going to be at the extra stuff, right? Because one of the things that did concern me was, hey, the idea that we're going to have him be this gadget guy. We're going to have him on gadgets. They didn't have him run a lot of gadgets at Auburn. And if he was going to be good at gadgets, he would have probably done it at Auburn. He gets to the NFL, and it turns out that he has great straight line speed, but he don't got great hips, right? He don't cut as fast as he runs. And there are some issues there when it comes to him at the wide receiver position that I worry about long term. Now, I've always said with Anthony Schwartz, even when you drafted him, I mean, the dude's 21, 22 years old. So, he is 21. And when you draft somebody that's that young, he was 20 years old when the Browns drafted him last year. It's a 2-year project, right? Like you hope you're going to get nothing out of it that first year. And then maybe in the second year, you get a little bit. And in the third year is where you expect to, quote unquote, profit with him. But there are concerns, right? He got taken off the field completely at the end of the season, right? And in week 6 and week 7, they tried to kind of bring him in more often, and he had like 3 targets. But then his snap count, let me pull up his snap count. It just dropped off kind of dramatically at the end of the year, and it looked like a lot of why his snap count dropped dramatically was because Baker Mayfield just did not trust him to finish his route or to know where he was supposed to go, something along those lines, right, where those snaps went down, right? If you look here, he starts the season off, by the way, don't snitch the PFF, right? Starts the season off 14 snaps at wide out, 15, 9, 8, 3 versus LA in a shootout game. Okay, back to 12, back to 14. Then he gets to Pittsburgh, 2, 9, 6. And this is after Odell left the team, right? 3, 5. And then the Pittsburgh game, he had 17 snaps, so good for him. But he only got targeted, I think, once with 17 wide receiver snaps. And then he got, 3 targets when Case Keenum was in for the last game. And when Case Keenum was in week 7, he got 14 snaps and 3 targets in that game too. So his targets were higher when Baker Mayfield wasn't out there. That's just a fact. If you look at it, right? Per game, he got targeted more per his snap count when Baker Mayfield wasn't out there. And this is one of the things I wanted to talk about when it comes to how we've evaluated the season. Look, we've done the Baker Wars thing. Hopefully that's going to come to an end soon. But one of the things that went down with the Cleveland Browns in the offseason was that we spent a lot of time, some of us spent a lot of time pointing fingers for why things went wrong, right? Some of us blamed the coaching staff and the quarterback. Some of us just blamed the quarterback. I'm more along the lines where I think a lot of the issues on offense were simply rooted in terrible quarterback play. That's where I stand on this, right? Some of us blamed the wide receiving. Some of us blamed the offensive line. Some of us blamed everything, right? Now, obviously, in principle, everything does matter. This is a team sport. So yes, that answer is always going to technically be right. But if we're actually trying to diagnose what the problem was, I think it's been very clear in some of the analysis that I've done, the tape work that I've done, and the numbers that I pulled up, that Baker Mayfield was the problem. His bad play in 2021 was the problem, right? And it affected the development of the wide receivers in a negative fashion. I think Anthony Schwartz, even though I'm not super high on Anthony Schwartz, I think he's an example of that, right? He gets less snaps most of the time because Baker doesn't want him out there for whatever reason. And then he also gets almost no targets when he's out there, right? For whatever reason. And I would love to give Baker the benefit of the doubt here, but he has been proven not to be trustworthy in the department of trusting that his eyes were right? Because when Baker's not giving somebody targets, you have two things to trust. You either trust that the guy wasn't open, the guy wasn't running the right route, and you're trusting the quarterback, right, in his judgment, or that the quarterback's not making the right judgment. Baker Mayfield does not get the benefit of the doubt there, not just because of the Odell situation, but because seeing the field has been an issue for Baker Mayfield for all 4 of his years. Diagnosing defense has been an issue for Baker Mayfield for all 4 of his seasons. You can argue with me all you want. The numbers, the tapes, all that stuff don't lie when it came to him. And that's where I get the feeling that, hey, maybe Anthony Schwartz is being slept on a little bit just because we're kind of writing him off and trying to replace him already, even though he's only a 1-year player. When he wasn't out there with Baker Mayfield, a guy who did not seem to trust him, he seemed to be more productive, right? Like, he wasn't the most productive player in the world when he wasn't out there. He didn't blow the world up, but he seemed to be a better wide receiver in that situation. And maybe that had something to do with the quarterback. It might have something to do with that. And having a Deshaun Watson who might play for most this season in there, who has had a proven track record of success with another straight line speed guy like Will Fuller, maybe that's what takes him to the next level. I don't know if he's going to be a 1,000-yard wide receiver. I don't ever think he's going to get to that level. I think he's a 500 to 750-yard guy in the NFL, which is not bad, by the way. Like, that's a great way to make a living in the NFL. That's a good spot to be in, and you want one of those guys, right? A guy who can take the top off, a guy who can allow Amari Cooper to run different routes because Amari's not going to run 9 routes all the time and can be respected over the top. Like, being Ted Ginn is not like this insult that people want to make it to be, but yeah, you want Anthony Schwartz to be Ted Ginn. You know what I mean? Even though Ted Ginn was a much better player in college than Anthony Schwartz ever trained he was, but Anthony Schwartz is faster. So that's kind of the hope for Anthony Schwartz. The question is, can he reach it? And also the question is it unreasonable to think that he can reach that goal? If the answer is yes, then you got to move on, right? If you don't think he can reach the goal of Ted Ginn, you got to let him go. But if you do think he can get to that point, all right, let's give him a shot here with a better quarterback and a better situation offensively. Let's see what he can do. The other player that I think is interesting to talk about is Donovan Peoples-Jones, because this is a guy who, I sound like Chris Collinsworth there, but this guy is a 6th-round pick, right? Has some great plays, some amazing plays versus Cincinnati in his rookie year. Kind of like disappears a little bit, but plays well at the end of 2020. Then we get to 2021, and in training camp, Donovan Peoples-Jones was unbelievable in training camp last year, like unbelievably good. Showed a lot of promise, got a lot of people excited, but the season starts, and in the first 4 weeks, that man got 4 targets. He didn't have 4 snaps, by the way. He got 4 targets, and how many snaps did he get at wide receiver? He got a ton of snaps at wide receiver, and he was only getting 4 targets. in those 4 weeks. Kind of ridiculous, right? Absolutely ridiculous. Again, if you look at the tape on some of those, he was open. Like the Chicago game, he was open. And he was open a lot. Just didn't get the ball. I don't know what he can do about that, right? And again, it's been established that if any year, in 2021 especially, Baker Mayfield had trouble seeing the field. That's a fact. That is a undisputed fact. And that kind of led to his low production in the first 4 weeks. But then, after that Minnesota game, which was a debacle of a game from the quarterback position, one of the worst quarterbacked games I've ever seen, other than the Detroit game this same year, right? Like Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield put on a stinker that day, but the Tim Boyle Baker Mayfield duel, that was also one of the worst quarterback games I've seen in quite a while. And they happened in the same season. Goodness gracious, the quarterback play was terrible this year, unfortunately. Well, in 2021, but then after that game in Minnesota, all of a sudden things change, right? He gets more targets. He's getting 6-7 targets a game. His PFF grades going up, right? He had a 70.9, a 80.3, a 91.8 after Odell left. And you're thinking, man, this dude's about to go to the moon. Then the wheels fall off the entire team, right? They get blown out by New England. The passing offense was terrible for the rest of the year. He had one good game, that second game in Baltimore, where he was open a lot. And he had a couple of good games with Las Vegas. I felt like he played well when Garrett Gilbert was in there. Well, not Garrett Gilbert. I'm sorry, I already forgot his name. And in Pittsburgh, he played pretty well too. Like he got open in Pittsburgh, right? But the wheels kind of fell off of the entire passing offense after that New England game. Like it was never the same. Like after that New England game, I don't think we've had a single well quarterback game after that, right? I think before it, you had a couple, but after it, I don't think you had any. And again, that brings into question, should we be as harsh in our judgment about these young wide receivers when it's very possible that their production was kneecapped by a quarterback who was not playing well at all for whatever reason? Again, you want to blame it on whatever. I'm here with you, whatever. But for whatever reason, was not playing well. Was playing awful, especially at the second half of the season. So much so that this offense pretty much tanked the entire year, and it started at the quarterback position. I know we can blame other things, the play calling, but I think it really did start at the quarterback position. It's my opinion about it, my educated opinion about that. But again, that brings up the question, how harsh should we be on Donovan Peoples-Jones? How harsh should we be on Anthony Schwartz? Or, how harsh are the front office going to be on those guys, knowing that that was an issue, right? Because it's pretty clear they thought quarterback was an issue. That's why they upgraded. So maybe that could be something that we're not expecting, that the Browns feel like they're fine. They feel like they have two gems still at the wide receiver position in Donovan Peoples-Jones and Anthony Schwartz. Let me know what you think. Do you think these two players are being overlooked? Let me know in the comment section down below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.